I was just finishing my petrol. Just another routine day out there, the kind of day where everything feels familiar. Predictable, like nothing is going to change no matter how many times you walk the same path. The forest felt calm, almost too calm, like everything was exactly where it should be, and for a while, that was enough to make the whole day feel ordinary. There was no urgency in my steps, no pressure in the way I moved, just the usual rhythm of patrol, one step after another, the kind of silence you learn to trust over time. And maybe that's exactly why it stood out so much when it broke, because then I heard something, not loud, not sharp, not even clear, just something faint, something buried deep underneath the natural sounds of the forest, something that didn't belong there. At first, I wasn't even sure I had heard anything at all. It was that slight. The kind of sound most people would miss completely or ignore or explain away as wind or leaves or some distant animal moving through brush. But it stayed with me. It didn't disappear. It didn't blend back into the background. It stayed just long enough to make me stop. So I did. I stopped walking completely and just stood there, listening, trying to separate that sound from everything else, trying to understand what it was, where it was coming from, why it felt wrong. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't branches. It wasn't any animal call I recognized. And the more I listened, the more certain I became this wasn't normal. And then I saw it. A deep pit right there in the ground, hidden just enough that you wouldn't notice it unless you were looking for it. The kind of thing that only becomes obvious once you're already close enough to feel how dangerous it is. And something was inside it. At first it was just movement and shadow. The pit was deep enough that the light didn't fully reach the bottom. All I could see was darkness, a shape, something low, something barely moving. So I stepped closer, carefully. And when the angle changed and a little more light reached down, that's when I finally saw it clearly. It was a leopard, a full-grown animal trapped at the bottom, and immediately something felt wrong. Not just because he was down there, but because of the way he was down there. He wasn't reacting the way a wild animal should. No pacing, no jumping, no frantic clawing at the walls, no repeated attempts to climb, just stillness. Heavy breathing, like even that was taking effort. I stayed there longer than I should have, just watching, trying to understand what I was seeing, because animals like that don't stop easily. Not without trying everything first, not without exhausting every bit of strength they have. And the more I watched, the clearer it became. This wasn't recent. He had been there for a while. There was something in the way his body barely responded, something in the way his head only moved in small, weak motions, something in the way he had stopped wasting energy on movements that wouldn't change anything. That kind of stillness doesn't happen at the beginning of a struggle. It happens after. It happens when effort has already been spent, over and over until there's almost nothing left. And every second before I arrived had already taken something from him. Strength, energy, resistance, hope. The pit itself, it wasn't just deep, it was the kind of depth that removes options completely. At first, it was just a feeling, that quiet awareness you get when something else is nearby, watching, waiting. Then I looked up and around, and there they were, wolves. Silent, still, patient, standing at a distance but close enough. They weren't making noise. They weren't rushing in. They weren't uncertain. They were just watching him, watching me, waiting. Like they already knew how this was going to end, and that's what made it worse. If they had been frantic, if they had been noisy, if they had charged too early, I could have understood that. But they were calm. Every step they took was measured. Every movement was slow and controlled. Like they were tightening a circle around the pit. They weren't afraid of me. Not really. They were just deciding whether I was worth the trouble. And that kind of pressure,
It doesn't come like a shock. It just stays there.
in the background, while you try to focus on something else, even while I was looking down into that pit, even while I was trying to think about the leopard, part of my mind never stopped tracking them. Their positions, their distance, the way they were moving, the way they kept watching without rushing. Because patience like that means confidence, and confidence like that means danger. And in that moment, everything changed. Because now it was about time. I didn't stop to plan. I just moved. I dropped to my knees at the edge, grabbed the nearest branch, and extended it down toward him. It wasn't a solution. Not really. It was just the first thing my hands found. The first thing that might give him something, anything to hold on to. For a second, just 1 second, I thought it might work. I saw movement, a reaction. A small attempt from him to reach toward it. And in moments like that, your mind moves ahead of reality. It sees possibility too early. It tells you maybe this is enough, maybe this is the break you needed, maybe all he needs is one good chance. But it slipped, the contact broke, and just like that, the moment was gone. I leaned further, trying to close the gap, trying to get the branch lower, trying to force a second chance into a situation that didn't want to give one. And that's when it happened. My foot slipped. The mud shifted under me, and for a split second, I felt that terrible empty sensation, the loss of balance, the sudden drop in your stomach, the certainty that you're about to fall before you. One wrong move, and I'd be down there too. And then there would be two of us trapped, and those wolves wouldn't have to wait much longer at all. I needed something better, something more reliable, something he could actually hold on to. Something that didn't depend on impossible timing and the last scraps of strength in a body that was already giving up. So I looked around quickly, scanning the ground, and that's when I saw it. A rope. Not perfect, but enough. I pulled it free. My hands were moving faster now, my focus sharper, because time had changed shape. It wasn't just passing anymore. It was shrinking. Every failed second felt more expensive than the last. I lowered the rope down slowly, carefully, guiding it toward him, hoping he still had something left. He saw it. I could tell he saw it. But when he tried, it slipped. He couldn't hold it. And that's when it really hit me. I didn't just have one problem. I had two, because the wolves were getting closer. Not running, not rushing, just moving slowly, deliberately, closing the distance a little more every time I looked at them. And that's what made it harder. They didn't need to do much. They didn't need to attack. Their presence alone changed everything. Every small movement from them added pressure. Every step forward narrowed my options a little more. I needed them distracted, even if it was just for a second, just enough time to try again without all that pressure tightening around me. So I grabbed a branch and threw it away from the pit, not far, just enough to break their focus. And it worked for a moment. Heads turned, bodies shifted, the circle loosened just slightly. And that moment was everything. I pulled the rope back, adjusted my position, leaned forward again, and lowered it down, this time closer, much closer than before, right in front of him. He lifted his head, slowly, painfully, like it took everything he had left, and this time he caught it. Not strong, not steady, but enough. And I didn't waste a second. I pulled, slowly at first, then harder, my grip tightening, my body leaning back, my boots digging into the mud for whatever support the ground would give me. He wasn't helping. He couldn't. His body just dragged along the mud at the bottom, then up against the wall, inch by inch, dead weight mixed with the last fragile trace of resistance. Every pull on that rope felt like it had to matter. Every inch he moved felt too small and too hard won. But stopping wasn't an option anymore. Not after getting this far. Not with the edge finally getting closer. Not with those wolves still there, still measuring the distance between patience and action. So I kept pulling, because this was it. The only chance. And somehow, slowly, painfully, started to come up, closer, closer to the edge, closer than I thought possible. And then he was there, right at the edge. I dropped one hand, reached down, and grabbed him. That weight, that final pull, it felt heavier than everything before it. Not because he was heavier than the rope had made him feel, but because that was the moment where failure would have hurt the most. To get that close and lose him there would have been worse than never moving him at all. But I pulled him over, dragged him out of that pit. And the moment he was on solid ground, he collapsed. His whole body just gave in. And for a second, everything stopped. No movement, no sound, just silence. The wolves didn't move. They just stood there, watching. But something had changed. Maybe it was the fact that he was out. Maybe it was the fact that I was between them now. Maybe it was just that the moment they had been waiting for had passed. Whatever it was, slowly, they stepped back. Not far, but enough. Enough to give us space. Enough to let him breathe. He stayed there for a moment, lying on the ground, trying to recover, and I stayed where I was, between him and them, not moving, not taking my eyes off the line where they stood. Then, slowly, he moved. Not all at once, not dramatically. Just a weak shift at first, then a push, then another, until finally he got his legs under him. Shaky, unsteady, barely standing, but standing. And then he turned and started walking, slowly, back into the forest. He didn't look back. Not even once. But he didn't need to. Because in that moment, I understood. Some things don't need words. If moments like this matter to you, make sure you're subscribed.